On the other hand, Ethan drove to Tia and Alex's house, seeking refuge from the oppressive stillness of his own apartment. The shadows of his thoughts had grown too heavy to bear alone, and he craved the warmth of familiar company. As he stepped inside, he was greeted by the familiar sound of bickering from the living room. "I'm telling you, Tia, it's scientifically backed," holding a thick pregnancy book like a gospel. "Studies show that babies can start recognizing voices even before birth." Alex's voice rang out, his tone a mix of exasperation and earnest enthusiasm. "Oh, for goodness sake, Alex, I don't even have a bump yet. It's way too early for any of that," Tia retorted, holding another pregnancy book in one hand and gesturing animatedly with the other. "Baby can't hear anything except the sound of my stomach growling." Ethan couldn't help but chuckle as he leaned against the doorway. "Trouble in paradise?" As he strolled in, he inquired, "Should I even ask what this is about?" Tia turned to him with a dramatic sigh. "Please, please tell Alex that he's lost his mind." But Alex was quick to jump in, undeterred. He thrust the book toward Ethan. "Actually, I've found my mind. I've been reading up on this. Total immersion parenting. Talking to the baby, playing music, and even reading stories can help them bond with us. It's science." Ethan took the book and flipped through a few pages, his eyebrows raised. "You've really done your homework, huh?" "Of course," Alex replied, puffing out his chest. "I'm going to be the best dad." Tia groaned, sinking onto the couch. "I'm not saying you won't be, but can we at least wait until I'm, showing?" Alex ignored her, dramatically clearing his throat. "Ethan, back me up here." Ethan grinned, tossing the book onto the coffee table. "Actually, I think you're onto something, Alex." Tia's jaw dropped. "Traitor?" "Think about it," Ethan said, sitting beside Tia. "He's not wrong, Tia. I mean, who wouldn't want to hear their dad's voice before they're born? Frankly speaking, if the baby could hear, wouldn't you want it to recognize its dad's voice? And its uncle's?" He gave Alex a conspiratorial wink. Tia groaned again, throwing her hands up. "Great! Now you're both on a team over the top." Alex beamed, clearly delighted to have Ethan in his corner. "See? I knew you'd get it." He grabbed a pillow and gestured dramatically. "All right, Tia, let's start the bonding process." "Bonding process?" Tia echoed, her tone dripping with mockery. "There's no baby to bond with yet. It's the size of a peanut." Ignoring her protests, Alex gently guided her to sit comfortably, arranging cushions behind her for support. Ethan, now fully invested in the absurdity of the moment, grabbed a nearby plush toy and mimicked holding a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced in a mock-serious tone, "the world premiere of Voices for Baby, featuring Dad and Uncle Ethan." Tia couldn't suppress a laugh as Alex knelt beside her, placing his hand gently on her still flat belly. "All right, little one," Alex began, his voice soft but serious. "This is your dad. You probably can't hear me yet, but when you can, just know, your mum is already rolling her eyes at us, and that's something you'll get used to." Ethan followed, crouching beside Alex and leaning toward Tia's belly. "And this is Uncle Ethan. I'm the fun one. Remember that when you're old enough to ask for extra dessert. Also, just between us, I'm going to be your favorite. Don't tell your dad." "Ah," Alex interjected, leaning closer. "Don't listen to Uncle Ethan. He's delusional. I'll be your favorite." Tia threw a pillow at both of them, laughing despite herself. "You're both insane," her frustration melting into fond amusement. She said, shaking her head. "There's not even a bump yet." Details, Alex said with a wave of his hand. "It's called preparation." The light-hearted moment pulled Ethan out of his own thoughts for a while. For the first time in days, he felt the weight on his chest lift, even if just temporarily. Later, after hours of laughter and bickering, Ethan settled into the guest bedroom. The house was quiet, but his mind wasn't. As he stared at the ceiling, the reality of Sicil's turmoil and the decisions ahead resurfaced. He replayed the scene with Sicil in his mind. Her tears, the anguish in her voice, the love that seemed to stretch in two directions, pulling her apart. She loved him. He didn't doubt that. But she also loved Sebastian, perhaps in a way that was deeper and older, rooted in the years they'd spent together. Ethan had seen the conflict in her eyes, the guilt she carried for having to choose. Morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and unrelenting, illuminating the guest room where Ethan sat perched on the edge of the bed. He had spent the night turning over the same thoughts, the same fears, and the same hopes. But now, the dawn brought an odd clarity. He reached for his phone, his fingers pausing momentarily over the screen before dialing Sicil's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice quiet, tentative. "Ethan." "Sicil," he began, his tone calm but laced with something unspoken. "We need to talk. Can you meet me? At the university, under our oak tree." There was a pause, the kind that stretched with unspoken weight. Finally, she responded, her voice soft but steady. "I'll be there." When the call ended, Ethan remained where he was, staring out the window at the awakening world. The faint hum of city life reached him, a backdrop to his turbulent thoughts. His face betrayed nothing, though his mind was a battlefield of possibilities. Would he fight for her, refusing to let her slip away? Or would he step back, allowing her the freedom to choose, even if that choice wasn't him? Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. His lips moved silently as if rehearsing the words he might say or bracing himself for the ones he might hear. The question lingered like the first gust of wind before a storm. What would he do when they stood face to face again? Meanwhile, at Sicil's home, the morning felt heavy with anticipation. After the call, Sicil sat on her bed, phone still in hand. She had known this conversation was coming, this moment where they would face the truth they had both been avoiding. Her heart ached, not from confusion, but from the knowledge that no choice she made would be without pain. She rose, the movements mechanical at first as she prepared for the day. Pulling on her work clothes, she tried to focus on the familiar routines, but her mind kept drifting to the oak tree, to Ethan, to the look in his eyes when she last saw him. A look of love, but also sadness. As she stepped out of her home, the faint sound of a car engine caught her attention. Looking outside, she saw Sebastian standing by his car, waiting for her. "Good morning," he greeted, his voice warm, trying to hide the sadness. "Let's begin another day at work. We have a packed day, like always." She hesitated, touched by his efforts to bring back normalcy, but also aware of the complications it added to an already fraught morning. "Thank you, Sebastian," she said, stepping into the car. The ride was quiet at first, filled only with the faint hum of the engine. Finally, Sicil broke the silence. "I need to make a detour before work." Sebastian glanced at her, curiosity and concern flickering in his eyes. "Of course. Where to?" "To the university," she said simply. "There's someone I need to meet." After a pause, she took a deep breath and said, "Ethan, I have to meet Ethan." There was no need for elaboration. Sebastian understood, though he said nothing. He simply nodded, his hands tightening slightly on the wheel as he drove toward the university. When they arrived at the gate, Sicil unbuckled her seatbelt and paused. "Thank you for this," she said, her tone genuine. Sebastian smiled faintly, masking the storm of emotions beneath. "Go on," he said. "I'll wait here." Sicil stepped out of the car, her heart pounding as she walked toward the familiar path leading to the oak tree. Behind her, Sebastian leaned back in his seat, staring out at the university's gates. His mind churned with memories, doubts, and an unspoken hope that whatever choice Sicil made, it would bring her peace, even if it wasn't with him.